beloved of the Lord. There is a divine moment unfolding right now, and you did not arrive here by accident. This Wednesday 13 of May carries a spiritual frequency that responds to your voice, your faith, and your alignment. Can you feel that something is shifting already? Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today, and what are you believing 2026 must change for you? Tonight is not about wishing. It is about decreeing, because when heaven hears clarity, earth must respond. Have you ever noticed how words spoken with authority can realign your atmosphere and your future? If that resonates, tap the like button as a sign of agreement. These are not ordinary declarations. These are enchanted decrees, intentional, focused, and charged with expectation to unlock miracle momentum in 2026. What miracle are you secretly hoping will finally manifest this year? And have you dared to speak it out loud yet? Go ahead, share it in the comments so faith can agree with faith. As you listen, your spirit is being trained to speak outcomes, not obstacles, possibilities, not limitations. Can you sense your confidence rising as you prepare to decree with precision and power? If you know someone who needs their voice back and their faith reignited, share this with them now. You are stepping into 101 moments where your words partner with divine timing to produce supernatural results. Are you ready to stop talking about what is and start declaring what must be? Stay open, stay engaged, and let every decree you speak tonight announce that 2026 will respond to you. Words are not casual sounds released into the air. They are carriers of intent, authority, and spiritual substance. Every word spoken is an instruction issued either to your future or to your fear. Long before results appear in the natural, outcomes are already forming in the unseen, shaped by what has been consistently declared. Life responds to language, and environments rearrange themselves around the vocabulary you choose to live with. When words are aligned with purpose, they become instruments that sculpt reality rather than merely describe it. From the beginning, creation itself responded to speech, not movement, not effort, not struggle, but spoken command. Light did not negotiate, water did not resist, order did not debate. It responded. In the same way, your life is designed to respond to what you authorize with your mouth. Silence does not neutralize outcomes. It only gives permission for default conditions to remain in control. What you fail to define verbally will be defined for you by circumstance, pressure, or fear. Words establish boundaries in the spirit long before they are visible in the physical. When you consistently speak lack, delay, or limitation, you are not being realistic. You are building a framework that restricts expansion. The mind hears repetition and accepts it as instruction, and the spirit follows what the mouth legitimizes. This is why temporary emotions should never be given permanent vocabulary. Feelings pass, but words plant roots. Every declaration is a form of agreement. You are either agreeing with chaos or commanding order, partnering with faith or reinforcing doubt. The power of words is not in volume, but in authority. Authority comes from conviction, and conviction is born when belief and language align. When your words and beliefs contradict each other, the outcome is instability. When they agree, momentum is released. Words do not merely describe your identity. They shape it. A person who repeatedly declares strength will eventually walk with confidence even before circumstances change. A person who constantly verbalizes defeat will embody it without realizing when it began. The mouth trains the mind, and the mind conditions behavior. This is why transformation rarely starts with action. It begins with language. Spiritual outcomes are not accidental. They are summoned. Every time you speak, you are either calling things forward or pushing them away. Blessings are attracted to permission, and permission is granted through words. Resistance weakens when confronted with consistent declaration. Even obstacles respond differently when they are addressed rather than feared. Words also set timing. Delay often lingers where indecision dominates speech. When clarity enters language, acceleration follows. Clear words create clear pathways. Confused speech produces fragmented results. This is why intentional declaration is not emotional expression. It is strategic alignment. You are not trying to convince heaven. You are positioning yourself to receive what is already available. What you repeatedly say about your future becomes the lens through which you interpret every opportunity. If your language expects failure, success will feel foreign and uncomfortable. If your words anticipate progress, challenges will feel temporary and instructional. Speech does not eliminate opposition, but it determines whether opposition has authority. The unseen realm responds faster than the visible one, which is why words sometimes appear ineffective at first. Seeds are never noisy underground, but they are always active. Declarations are seeds, and silence does not stop growth once they are planted. Consistency waters what you have spoken, and time reveals what your mouth has been cultivating all along. Words also determine what stays and what leaves. Certain cycles break only when they are verbally confronted. Some patterns persist not because they are powerful, but because they have never been challenged by authority-filled speech. When words shift, permissions shift. What was tolerated loses access. What was distant draws nearer. Your voice is not decorative, it is functional. It was designed to shape atmospheres, not just communicate needs. When spoken intentionally, words release order into confusion, courage into fear, and direction into uncertainty. Spiritual outcomes follow structure, and structure begins with language that knows where it is going. The future listens carefully to the words you repeat today. Destiny responds to clarity, not desperation. What you consistently decree becomes the framework through which opportunities recognize you. Words go ahead of you, preparing rooms you have not yet entered, conversations you have not yet had, and doors you have not yet seen open. Decrees are not wishes spoken with hope. They are decisions released with authority. When a decree is spoken, it establishes a ruling, and rulings create alignment. Alignment is what causes heaven and earth to cooperate instead of collide. Many people pray sincerely yet live inconsistently because their words ask for what their language never authorizes. A decree is different. It is a verbal alignment with divine order that signals readiness, clarity, and responsibility. Deliverance does not occur automatically. It is activated. When a decree is spoken, it draws scattered energies, unfocused intentions, and delayed outcomes into order. Confusion exits when authority enters. The moment you decree, you are announcing that uncertainty no longer has permission to lead. Life begins to reorganize itself around the clarity of that declaration. What once felt disjointed starts responding with precision. Decrees function as spiritual coordinates. They tell your future where to meet you. Without them, opportunities wander past unrecognized, blessings remain unclaimed, and timing feels erratic. When you decree intentionally, you create a fixed point in the unseen that outcomes can locate. Alignment happens because direction has been established. Direction removes randomness. Every decree releases governance. You are not begging circumstances to improve. You are enforcing order where disorder once ruled. Authority is not emotional, it is positional. When you decree, you are stepping into position. This is why hesitation weakens outcomes. Alignment responds to confidence, not volume. A quiet decree spoken with certainty carries more power than loud words filled with doubt. Deliverance also requires agreement. Decrees create internal agreement before external manifestation. When your mouth speaks what your spirit believes, fragmentation dissolves. Internal conflict is often the reason progress feels slow. A decree unifies thought, intention, and expectation. Once unity is achieved internally, movement accelerates externally. Decrees shift responsibility. Instead of waiting for circumstances to change, you become the initiator of change. This shift activates momentum. Life responds differently to initiators than to observers. When you decree, you stop reacting and start directing. Direction is what causes systems, people, and opportunities to realign around your purpose. Many delays are not denials, they are misalignments. Decrees correct alignment by clarifying intention. When intention is clear, resistance weakens. Resistance feeds on ambiguity. The moment ambiguity leaves, resistance loses leverage. Decrees remove ambiguity by defining outcomes before evidence appears. Alignment through decree also trains perception. You begin to notice opportunities that were always present but previously invisible. This is not coincidence. It is calibration. When your language changes, your awareness adjusts. Alignment sharpens discernment. You stop wasting energy on distractions because your decrees have narrowed your focus. Decrees activate timing. There are seasons waiting for verbal permission. Certain doors remain closed not because they are locked, but because they are waiting to be addressed. When you decree, you acknowledge the season and give it language to manifest. Timing responds to recognition. Words spoken as decrees do not argue with reality. They instruct it. Reality resists suggestion but responds to authority. Authority is recognized by consistency. One decree spoken once introduces alignment. Repeated decrees establish it. Consistency signals seriousness. Heaven responds to seriousness, not urgency. Decrees also redefine identity. Alignment is impossible when identity is unclear. When you decree who you are becoming, your decisions begin to follow that identity. Behavior aligns naturally without force. You stop negotiating with habits that no longer match your declared direction. When decrees are absent, alignment is left to chance. Chance produces unstable results. Decrees remove chance and replace it with intention. Intention creates predictability, and predictability creates peace. Peace is a sign of alignment. Alignment activated by decree does not eliminate challenge, but it determines outcome. Challenges become confirmations rather than contradictions. Opposition becomes a signal that alignment is working, not failing. Decrees do not stop pressure. They decide who wins under pressure. Every environment responds to leadership, and leadership is established through language. Decrees announce leadership. When you speak with authority, atmospheres adjust. Conversations change. Opportunities reposition themselves. Once ignored you begins to respond. Decrees are invitations to order. Order invites increase. Increase follows alignment. This is why decrees must be intentional, precise, and spoken with expectation. Vague language produces vague outcomes. Precise decrees produce measurable shifts. Malice remains active as long as decrees are maintained. Silence does not cancel alignment, but inconsistency weakens it. You repeatedly affirm becomes stable. Stability attracts trust. Trust accelerates manifestation. When decrees are released, you are no longer hoping things will line up. You are commanding alignment to take place. Alignment responds because it recognizes authority. Authority is recognized because it is spoken without apology. Authority is not something you request. It is something you recognize and release. It does not announce itself with noise or force, but with certainty. When clarity enters your thinking, authority immediately follows. Because authority depends on knowing what you stand for, what you allow, and what you will no longer tolerate. Confusion weakens command, but clarity sharpens it. The moment you become clear, your words carry weight, and weight produces movement. Clarity removes hesitation. Hesitation signals uncertainty, and uncertainty dilutes authority. When your intentions are unclear, your language becomes fragmented, and fragmented language cannot command results. Authority flows through decisive speech. It is not aggressive, it is settled. Settled speech tells the unseen realm that you have made a decision, and decisions shift outcomes faster than effort. Many people possess authority, but never experience its effects because they speak from emotion instead of clarity. Emotion fluctuates, clarity remains stable. When words are spoken from clarity, they do not need repetition for emphasis, they carry instruction. Instruction is what systems respond to. Chaos ignores emotion but obeys order. Clarity defines boundaries. Authority without boundaries becomes suggestion. When you clearly define what belongs in your life and what does not, your authority becomes enforceable. Boundaries give language direction. Direction gives authority momentum. Without boundaries, words scatter instead of strike. Authority released through clarity also restructures inner dialogue. The way you speak to yourself determines how confidently you speak to life. Self-talk filled with uncertainty trains the mind to expect resistance. Clear internal language conditions the mind to anticipate compliance. Compliance begins internally before it manifests externally. Clarity transforms requests into commands. Requests ask for permission. Commands assume alignment. Authority does not argue for results. It announces them. When clarity is present, words stop negotiating with doubt. Doubt loses influence when it is no longer acknowledged. Many delays are not caused by opposition, but by mixed signals. Mixed signals come from unclear language. When your words say one thing and your actions suggest another, authority weakens. Clarity aligns speech and behavior. Once alignment occurs, authority becomes visible and effective. Authority is also sustained by consistency. Consistency is not repetition without thought. It is repetition with conviction. When clarity defines what you repeatedly say, your words establish patterns. Patterns create expectation. Expectation attracts results. Clarity gives courage structure. Courage without clarity becomes recklessness. Clarity ensures that courage is applied accurately. Authority does not rush. It advances with intention. When you know why you are speaking, you do not fear response or resistance. Authority released through clarity changes how others respond to you. People sense certainty before they understand content. Clear language establishes leadership even in silence. Authority shifts conversations, negotiations, and opportunities because it removes ambiguity. Ambiguity invites challenge. Clarity limits it. Clarity also determines spiritual reach. Vague declarations produce limited impact. Precise declarations travel further and accomplish more. Authority recognizes specificity. The more defined the decree, the more defined the result. Precision is not restriction, it is focus. When clarity is absent, authority is borrowed from others. When clarity is present, authority is owned. Ownership changes posture. Posture changes presence. Presence influences outcomes before words are even spoken. Clarity disciplines the tongue. Not everything felt must be said. Authority is preserved by restraint. Clear thinkers speak selectively. Selective speech maintains power. Authority weakens when words are wasted on unnecessary explanations. Authority also requires clarity about timing. Speaking too early or too late diminishes effectiveness. Clarity recognizes the right moment. Authority speaks when timing and intention intersect. That intersection produces immediate response. Clarity brings alignment between belief and declaration. Authority flows where belief and language agree. When belief hesitates, language softens. When belief is clear, language sharpens. Sharp language cuts through resistance. Authority released through clarity does not seek validation. Validation-seeking language gives power away. Authority speaks because it knows. Knowing removes the need for approval. Approval dependence dilutes command. Clarity also neutralizes fear. Fear thrives in uncertainty. When clarity enters, fear loses context. Authority rises naturally when fear exits. Words spoken from clarity do not tremble, they settle. Authority is sustained by clarity of purpose. When purpose is unclear, words drift. When purpose is clear, words land. Landing words produce results. Clarity does not eliminate complexity, but it simplifies response. Authority does not need to understand everything to act. It only needs to know enough to decide. Authority released through clarity establishes permanence. Temporary words create temporary effects. Clear words establish lasting change. What is clearly spoken remains enforced. When clarity governs speech, authority becomes a constant force rather than a momentary surge. Outcomes follow because instruction has been given, boundaries have been set, and alignment has been declared. Faith does not wait for evidence to speak. It speaks to create evidence. The moment faith begins to operate, language shifts from observation to declaration. What is visible becomes secondary to what is believed. Faith understands that the future responds to voice before it responds to sight. This is why silence in the presence of uncertainty often prolongs delay, while faith-filled speech accelerates manifestation. Speaking before results appear is not denial of reality. It is definition of direction. Faith does not ignore circumstances, but it refuses to let circumstances dictate outcomes. When faith speaks, it establishes a superior narrative. Narratives shape expectations, and expectations influence behavior. Once behavior aligns with expectation, results follow naturally. Faith-filled speech is intentional. It does not react to pressure. It responds to purpose. Pressure tries to provoke emotional language, but faith chooses disciplined words. Disciplined words carry authority because they are not controlled by momentary conditions. Faith speaks from conviction, not convenience. The unseen realm recognizes faith through sound. Before outcomes take form, they respond to agreement. Faith-filled words create agreement between belief and declaration. That agreement releases momentum. Momentum builds quietly at first, often unnoticed. It is always progressing toward visibility. Faith understands timing differently. Results are not required for faith to remain confident. Confidence precedes confirmation. This is why faith speaks early. Early speech positions the future. Late speech only comments on what already exists. Speaking before results appear trains endurance. When language remains consistent despite delay, faith matures. Maturity stabilizes expectation. Stabilized expectation prevents disappointment from sabotaging progress. Faith-filled speech protects the heart while outcomes are forming. Faith also reframes challenges. Instead of asking why something is happening, faith declares what will come out of it. Declarations redirect focus from struggle to outcome. Outcome-focused language sustains perseverance. Perseverance keeps faith active. The faith speaks with specificity. Vague faith produces vague results. Specific declarations give faith a target. When faith has a target, effort becomes aligned. Alignment reduces wasted energy. Faith is efficient because it knows where it is going. Speaking before results appear also reprograms the mind. The brain responds to repetition. Faith-filled repetition conditions the mind to expect success. Expectation influences decision-making. Decisions aligned with expectation create pathways for manifestation. Faith-filled language alters emotional responses. Fear diminishes when faith consistently speaks. Fear feeds on uncertainty. Faith feeds on promise. When promise dominates language, fear loses vocabulary. Without vocabulary, fear loses influence. Faith also invites partnership. Others respond to confidence more than potential. Faith-filled speech attracts support, resources, and collaboration. People are drawn to clarity. Faith provides that clarity even before outcomes are visible. Faith speaking early establishes ownership. Ownership precedes possession. When you speak as if something belongs to you, behavior shifts accordingly. You prepare, plan, and protect what you expect to receive. Preparation accelerates arrival. Faith-filled speech resists contradiction. Contradiction tests consistency. When faith continues to speak despite opposing evidence, it strengthens authority. Authority increases with resistance. Resistance becomes confirmation that faith is active. Faith speaks from alignment, not arrogance. It is not loud, but it is certain. Certainty influences environments. Environments adjust to certainty. When environments adjust, outcomes shift. Speaking before results appear also builds resilience. Words become anchors during uncertainty. Anchors prevent drift. Drift delays destiny. Faith-filled words keep direction intact during storms. Faith does not explain itself repeatedly. Explanation invites debate. Faith speaks and stands. Standing is a posture of authority. Authority does not require defense. It requires consistency. Faith-filled speech transforms waiting into preparation. Waiting without speech feels passive. Waiting with declaration feels purposeful. Purposeful waiting maintains momentum even in stillness. Faith understands that silence can be agreement with delay. Speaking breaks that agreement. When faith speaks, it interrupts cycles of postponement. Interruption changes patterns. Faith-filled language is future-focused. It borrows confidence from what is coming. That borrowed confidence sustains present action. Action aligned with future vision produces present progress. Faith speaks because it knows that sound precedes structure. Structures form around consistent declarations. Declarations frame reality. That faith does not need applause to speak. Approval seeking weakens faith. Faith speaks from trust, not validation. Faith-filled speech builds internal peace. Peace confirms alignment. Alignment strengthens faith. Faith speaks before results appear because it understands that words are invitations. What is invited with faith eventually arrives. Heaven responds not to noise, urgency, or repetition, but to intentional language that carries alignment, authority, and expectation. Words spoken without direction drift, but words spoken with intention arrive at their destination. Intention gives language assignment. Without assignment, speech becomes emotional release rather than spiritual instruction. When language is intentional, it becomes a signal that activates response. Intentional language is precise. Precision removes confusion. Confusion delays response because it sends mixed signals. When words are carefully chosen, they carry clarity that the unseen realm recognizes immediately. Clarity is a form of respect. It shows readiness, responsibility, and awareness. Vague speech asks for outcomes without defining them. Intentional language defines outcomes before requesting or declaring them. Heaven responds to alignment. Alignment is revealed through consistency of language. When words change with circumstances, alignment weakens. When words remain stable despite shifting conditions, alignment strengthens. Stability in language demonstrates trust. Trust opens channels of response. Intentional language also reflects expectation. Expectation determines tone. Tone communicates belief. Belief activates response. Words spoken without expectation sound empty even when they are technically correct. When expectation fills language, it carries weight. Weight produces movement. Heaven responds to language that assumes cooperation rather than resistance. Language framed in defeat anticipates opposition. Language framed in faith anticipates agreement. Agreement accelerates manifestation. Intentional language speaks from the position of partnership rather than distance. Every word carries direction. Intentional words move toward purpose. Casual words wander. Wandering words produce wandering outcomes. Purpose-driven language produces focused results. Focus attracts attention. Attention precedes response. Intentional language is disciplined. Does not say everything it feels. Discipline preserves authority. Authority invites response. When language lacks discipline, authority is diluted. Diluted authority delays outcomes. Heaven responds to language that recognizes timing. Words spoken too early may lack foundation. Words spoken too late may lack urgency. Intentional language discerns the moment. Timing gives language relevance. Relevant language receives attention. Intentional language also establishes agreement within the speaker. Internal agreement amplifies external response. When the mouth speaks what the heart believes, power is released. When the mouth contradicts belief, response weakens. Language that heaven responds to is rooted in purpose, not panic. Panic-driven speech seeks escape. Purpose-driven speech seeks fulfillment. Fulfillment attracts support. Support accelerates completion. Intentional language removes entitlement. It does not demand, it declares alignment. Entitlement repels response. Alignment attracts cooperation. Cooperation creates flow. Words spoken intentionally also create atmosphere. Atmosphere influences reception. When atmosphere is calm, focused, and expectant, response is unhindered. Chaotic atmosphere distorts signals. Intentional language stabilizes atmosphere. Heaven responds to language that carries responsibility. Responsibility acknowledges stewardship. Stewardship invites trust. Trust increases access. Access expands opportunity. Intentional language honors process. It does not rush outcome. It speaks progress. Progress-oriented language maintains momentum. Momentum shortens distance between declaration and manifestation. Language that is intentional is also resilient. It does not change under pressure. Pressure tests sincerity. Sincerity strengthens authority. Authority produces response. Heaven responds to language that is relational rather than transactional. Transactional language focuses on exchange. Relational language focuses on alignment. Alignment sustains connection. Sustained connection increases responsiveness. Intentional language clarifies identity. Identity shapes expression. Expression shapes interaction. When identity is clear, language reflects confidence. Confidence invites response. Language that heaven responds to is anchored in truth rather than desire alone. Desire initiates speech. Truth stabilizes it. Stability supports response. Intentional language also governs repetition. Repetition without intention becomes ritual. Ritual loses power. Repetition with intention reinforces direction. Reinforced direction produces results. Heaven responds to language that carries vision. Vision stretches expectation. Stretched expectation creates capacity. Increased capacity accommodates greater response. Intentional language eliminates contradiction. Contradiction confuses response. Unified language creates clarity. Clarity invites cooperation. Language spoken intentionally positions the speaker as a participant rather than a spectator. Participation activates responsibility. Responsibility activates authority. Heaven responds when language is aligned with action. Words unsupported by behavior weaken credibility. Credibility strengthens response. Intentional language creates pathways. Pathways guide outcomes. Outcomes follow defined paths. Language that is intentional remains consistent over time. Time tests intention. Sustained intention produces trust. Trust accelerates response. Heaven responds to language that is clear, aligned, disciplined, and expectant, because such language demonstrates readiness to receive, manage, and multiply what is released. Consistency is the bridge between declaration and manifestation. Without it, even the most powerful words dissipate like smoke in the wind. Consistency ensures that authority remains active, alignment is reinforced, and momentum is maintained. When you speak with consistency, the unseen realm begins to anticipate your words, preparing the spiritual atmosphere to respond. Inconsistency, on the other hand, creates uncertainty, giving space for doubt, delay, and opposition to gain foothold. Consistency builds credibility. The spiritual realm responds to reliability. When your declarations are repeated with conviction, they establish a pattern that heaven recognizes. Pattern creates expectation. Expectation triggers acceleration. When your words are consistent, results no longer seem random or accidental. They become predictable because your voice has been planting seeds of authority day after day. Inconsistencies disrupts this pattern, causing cycles of restart, reattempt, and often frustration. Consistency also strengthens internal belief. Repetition of declarations trains your mind to align with your spirit. Thoughts follow speech. When you consistently declare truth over circumstance, you condition your mind to recognize and pursue the reality you are speaking into existence. Repetition reinforces faith. And reinforced faith stabilizes your emotional and spiritual posture, enabling you to stay focused even when external circumstances appear contrary. Every consistent declaration acts as a spiritual drumbeat, calling resources, opportunities, and support to synchronize with your purpose. The universe and the unseen realm respond to rhythm. Random, scattered, or sporadic speech does not create rhythm. It creates noise. Noise may be noticed but does not compel response. Rhythm, generated through consistency, creates a gravitational pull that draws the unseen into alignment with your spoken words. Consistency also trains resilience. Obstacles, setbacks, and opposition become less intimidating when you have a foundation of repeated declarations. Repetition reminds your spirit and your mind that your authority is not dependent on immediate results. Each declaration becomes reinforcement, a spiritual weight that cannot be easily displaced. Over time, consistent words build an invisible infrastructure that supports progress even when conditions are unstable. The power of consistency lies not only in the frequency of repetition, but in the fidelity of intention. Each repetition should carry conviction, expectation, and clarity. A repeated declaration spoken half-heartedly is less effective than a single, intentional declaration spoken with full authority. Consistency without purpose becomes routine. Consistency with conviction becomes unstoppable. Consistency shapes timing. Certain spiritual windows remain dormant until reinforced by repeated authority. Some breakthroughs respond slowly, not because of resistance, but because consistency has not yet prepared the environment for reception. Repeated declarations signal readiness. Readiness activates opportunity. Consistent speech tunes the atmosphere to recognize and release what is decreed. Consistency also strengthens alignment between belief, declaration, and action. Words alone are insufficient if the spirit wavers or behavior contradicts the declaration. Repetition builds integrity between mind, mouth, and movement. When all three are aligned consistently, spiritual momentum accelerates and results are inevitable. Misalignment interrupts flow, but consistent alignment strengthens it. The unseen realm operates on principles, not emotion. It responds to reliable patterns. When you declare consistently, you are establishing a principle. What you speak will happen because it is declared in authority. Principles create predictability in spiritual operations. Predictability allows the natural and supernatural to cooperate without confusion or delay. Consistency also magnifies the power of expectation. Repetition trains the heart to anticipate results rather than doubt them. Anticipation is a form of spiritual magnetism. When expectation is constant, the unseen realm moves faster to fulfill your declaration. Inconsistency weakens expectation, introducing hesitation that slows response. A mind that consistently expects blessing communicates readiness to receive, opening channels that were dormant. Every consistent word carries weight over time. Weight influences outcomes. Heavy, repeated, intentional speech alters spiritual atmospheres more effectively than a single declaration repeated sporadically. Weight creates inertia. Inertia sustains momentum. Momentum maintains progress even when natural obstacles attempt to intervene. Consistency also reinforces authority. Authority is not established once and forgotten. It is maintained through persistent declaration. Even when opposition arises, consistent speech signals that your voice will not be silenced. Authority is recognized because it is unwavering. Inconsistency invites challenge. Consistency enforces respect. Through consistency, you also calibrate your spiritual senses. Repeated declarations heighten awareness to opportunities and confirmations that align with what you have spoken. The more consistently you declare, the more attuned you become to signs, coincidences, and alignments that validate your words. Inconsistent speech dulls spiritual perception, making progress seem slower than it actually is. Consistency is also relational. It influences people, situations, and circumstances around you. Those who observe persistent faith recognize reliability and respond accordingly. Your consistent words create confidence in collaborators, allies, and the environment itself. Inconsistency, conversely, generates doubt and hesitation in others, weakening influence and authority. Consistency safeguards against distraction. Life throws challenges, temptations, and diversions that seek to weaken focus. Persistent declaration keeps your voice anchored in purpose. Each repetition becomes a tether that resists drift, pulling your spirit back to authority and expectation, even in turbulent circumstances. Without this tether, momentum can falter. Consistency also multiplies spiritual impact. Each repetition compounds previous ones, layering authority and expectation. Like building blocks, repeated declarations stack, creating a structure that supports larger and more significant outcomes. Sporadic declarations never reach the same level of influence because the layers are fragmented, leaving gaps in spiritual construction. Consistency prepares the unseen realm to respond in fullness. When declarations are regular, precise, and expectant, every part of the spiritual atmosphere knows where to align. Delays are shortened because systems have already been activated by repeated instruction. The more consistent you are, the faster the response. Consistency is not passive. It requires deliberate focus. It is not a mechanical repetition, but an active, intentional alignment of belief, declaration, and expectation over time. This is why even when results are delayed, the one who speaks consistently is steadily building an environment for breakthrough. Each spoken word carries cumulative power that compounds with every repetition. Expectation is the invisible engine that drives manifestation. It is more than hope or desire. It is a confident anticipation that what has been spoken or believed is already moving toward realization. Without expectation, words float in the air without anchoring outcomes. Expectation gives direction to faith, authority to decrees, and momentum to intention. It is the lens through which the Spirit interprets declarations and transforms them into results. Expectation requires clarity. You cannot expect what you cannot define. Vague hope produces vague results because the unseen realm cannot respond to ambiguity. Precise expectation tells your environment, your circumstances, and your spiritual atmosphere exactly what to align with. When you speak with clear expectation, you are effectively giving instruction to the forces that govern outcomes. Ambiguity, on the other hand, signals indecision and invites delay. Expectation multiplies the power of words. A declaration spoken without expectation may initiate action, but it lacks the authority to accelerate results. Words spoken with expectation carry weight because they are coupled with belief and anticipation. The universe responds to energy behind words, and expectation amplifies that energy. Every statement made with certainty resonates further than repeated statements made without conviction. Expectation also shapes perception. When you expect results, your mind and spirit begin to scan for opportunities, confirmations, and alignments that support your declarations. You notice possibilities that others overlook. You recognize timing that others miss. Expectation trains your senses to align with what you are calling forth, creating a feedback loop that confirms your words and strengthens your faith. Consistent expectation strengthens momentum. Momentum is like a river. It flows steadily when reinforced and slows when interrupted. Each time you speak with expectation, you add velocity to the flow of your declarations. Delays and obstacles may appear. Because expectation has created a forward-moving current, resistance cannot stop the process. It only diverts it temporarily. Over time, consistent expectation compounds, producing results that might have seemed impossible at first. Expectation also dictates emotional alignment. When you consistently expect success, doubt, fear, and anxiety lose their authority. Your heart and mind begin to operate from a place of certainty rather than reaction. Emotional stability generated by expectation allows your spirit to stay focused even when circumstances appear contrary. Faith flourishes in an environment of consistent anticipation because it is not shaken by temporary conditions. Expectation enhances authority. Authority depends on certainty. Uncertain words, even when powerful in intent, lack enforcement because they signal indecision. Expectation conveys command. When you speak with confident anticipation, your words are no longer mere suggestions. They become instructions that the spiritual realm must recognize. Opposition may still arise, but expectation ensures that resistance cannot delay fulfillment indefinitely. Expectation also aligns timing. Many breakthroughs are dependent on readiness, not coincidence. Speaking with expectation prepares the environment to receive what has been declared. It is like sending a signal in advance. The forces that need to cooperate are alerted and positioned for action. Without expectation, you may speak or pray, but the timing of response remains uncertain, delaying the flow of results. Expectation clarifies intention. When your mind anticipates an outcome, your words become sharper, your focus becomes stronger, and your actions align with your declarations. Intention without expectation can be weak or distracted, producing inconsistent outcomes. Expectation gives intention a gravitational pull, ensuring that resources, opportunities, and circumstances are drawn toward your goal. Expectation multiplies the effect of faith. Faith believes, but expectation demands. Faith opens the door. Expectation walks through it. When you expect, you are instructing your spirit to anticipate movement rather than passively observe. Expectation adds urgency and acceleration to belief, transforming potential into kinetic results. Without expectation, faith may exist but move slowly, producing limited results over time. Expectation also activates receptivity. Opportunities, divine intervention, and strategic connections respond to anticipation. When your spirit expects, it positions itself to receive rather than to doubt. Your attitude, posture, and focus are tuned to identify solutions and blessings that may otherwise be missed. Expectation creates readiness, and readiness facilitates manifestation. Expectation protects focus. Distractions attempt to divert attention and energy, but a mind set on anticipated outcomes remains steady. Expectation acts as a compass, guiding decisions, actions, and speech in alignment with the desired result. When distractions appear, expectation filters them, allowing only what supports your declarations to influence your course. Expectation produces confidence. The more you expect, the more naturally confident you become. Confidence reinforces words, decisions, and actions, creating a spiral of influence that strengthens authority and accelerates outcomes. People, circumstances, and environments respond to confident anticipation because it signals alignment with purpose. Expectation communicates certainty to others, whether in personal interactions, professional endeavors, or spiritual engagement. Those who operate with expectation influence those around them. Confidence, clarity, and decisiveness inspire cooperation, attract support, and generate momentum that cannot be replicated by casual or hesitant words. Expectation multiplies results over time. Each act of confident anticipation reinforces prior declarations, builds momentum, and strengthens alignment. Repeated expectation compounds like interest in an account. Small, consistent acts of belief and anticipation create substantial spiritual and natural returns. Those who expect see patterns, recognize opportunities, and are prepared to act when conditions shift. Expectation converts vision into reality. A vision without expectation remains abstract, distant, and theoretical. Expectation transforms vision into a framework for action, preparing your mind, spirit, and environment for manifestation. When you expect, you are positioning your life, your circumstances, and your spiritual atmosphere to cooperate with what you have declared. Expectation does not require proof. It demands agreement. The unseen realm responds to the energy of anticipation more than to visible evidence. When you expect something to happen, you are signaling readiness and commanding alignment. Expectation ensures that your voice, actions, and focus remain synchronized, producing the conditions necessary for results. Expectation is a catalyst for action. Words spoken without expectation may be empty or ineffective, but expectation energizes action, decision-making, and strategy. It pushes the speaker to move in ways that support the declared outcome. Action aligned with expectation accelerates the natural and supernatural processes required to produce results. Expectation shapes the experience of waiting. Waiting without expectation breeds frustration, doubt, and discouragement. Waiting with expectation cultivates patience, persistence, and faith. The heart remains settled, the mind remains focused, and the spirit stays engaged. Waiting becomes a process of preparation rather than a period of stagnation. Expectation amplifies declarations by turning them into commands. A spoken word becomes more than a statement. It becomes a directive that the universe recognizes. Every expectation-filled word carries authority because it communicates certainty, readiness, and intent. Opposition may arise. Expectation ensures that resistance cannot prevent fulfillment. Expectation tunes your spirit to detect opportunities and divine guidance. The more you expect, the more sensitized your awareness becomes to signs, confirmations, and openings. Opportunities that would normally pass unnoticed are recognized and seized because your anticipation has prepared you to act. Expectation is the multiplier that turns spoken words, faith, and declarations into momentum. Without expectation, declarations may stagnate, efforts may scatter, and faith may slow. With expectation, every spiritual and natural law begins to cooperate, accelerating alignment, authority, and manifestation. Expectation empowers your voice to become a generator of results rather than a passive observer. When expectation dominates your language, thoughts, and focus, you no longer wait for life to happen. You command it to align with your declarations. Silence is not always peace, and quiet is not always rest. In many situations, silence can be agreement with what should not remain in control. Words are instruments of authority, and withholding them can allow circumstances, fear, or opposition to dictate outcomes. Speaking with purpose interrupts stagnation and initiates movement. Every time you remain silent in situations that require declaration, you forfeit control over your destiny. Giving space for delay, limitation, or compromise to settle where your voice should have been heard. Speaking with authority ensures that your environment aligns with your intent. Authority is not aggression. It is clarity in action. Words delivered with authority carry instruction, not opinion. The unseen realm and those around you respond to conviction more than volume. Speaking with purpose asserts boundaries, defines identity, and establishes leadership. When silence dominates, leadership becomes passive and influence diminishes. The power of your voice is not optional. It is functional. Many people underestimate the effect of unspoken words. Silence communicates as loudly as speech. When you refuse to declare what must be enforced, systems continue operating in default modes. Opportunities are missed, patterns remain unbroken, and cycles persist. Speaking once with authority interrupts the default, issuing commands that alter trajectory. One declarative statement made with faith and precision can shift outcomes faster than prolonged deliberation or repeated questioning. Speaking once requires courage and clarity. Hesitation, uncertainty, or repeated repetition often dilute the potency of your words. Faith does not repeat in fear, it declares in certainty. When words are spoken decisively, they instruct the unseen, align circumstances, and activate resources. Repetition is unnecessary when authority is established the first time. The spoken word becomes a seed, and the act of speaking intentionally plants it with permanence. Speaking once is also a declaration of identity. It communicates who you are, what you believe, and what you will accept. Identity is reinforced through language. When your words consistently reflect clarity and authority, others recognize your stance without need for argument or negotiation. Silence, by contrast, allows identity to be questioned or overridden by circumstance. Speaking once demonstrates confidence and ensures your voice carries weight. Authority-filled speech influences timing. Many breakthroughs remain delayed not because of inability, but because words have not been spoken to authorize their arrival. Speaking once with intent creates a signal that prepares conditions, aligns opportunity, and releases favor. Timing responds to declaration. Delayed outcomes often indicate absence of instruction rather than lack of potential. One clear statement can release what months of planning cannot if spoken without authority. Speaking once also protects energy. Repetition without conviction drains spiritual, emotional, and mental reserves. Words repeated without faith or expectation scatter influence. Authority spoken once focuses power, directs momentum, and minimizes wasted effort. Concentrated energy is more effective than prolonged volume because spiritual systems respond to precision, not noise. Focused declaration establishes what scattered repetition attempts but rarely achieves. Silence allows resistance to grow unchecked. Opposition gains influence when unchallenged. Speaking once challenges resistance immediately. Words delivered with conviction assert boundaries and define the terms under which life must respond. Resistance does not cease entirely, but its power diminishes because your authority has established precedent. Timing, cycles, and circumstances recalibrate to the voice that commands direction. Speaking once with authority also conditions the mind and spirit. The mind internalizes the declaration as a fixed expectation, training the heart to operate from certainty rather than doubt. Habits of speaking decisively strengthen confidence, perseverance, and focus. Repeated hesitation or silence, in contrast, trains the mind to expect delay and limitation. Authority creates mental alignment before physical manifestation occurs. Clarity is essential in one-time declaration. Words must be specific, intentional, and aligned with purpose. Vague or emotional statements lack enforceable power. Clarity defines outcomes and instructs the unseen realm on how to respond. Authority without clarity is ineffective because it signals presence without direction. Speaking once is most powerful when words carry precision, expectation, and faith. Speaking once also influences relational dynamics. Others respond to confidence, decisiveness, and clarity. Leadership, influence, and cooperation emerge naturally when authority is demonstrated in speech. Hesitation or repeated indecision creates uncertainty in those around you. One authoritative declaration establishes the framework within which relationships, collaborations, and opportunities must operate. The act of speaking once interrupts default patterns. Habits, cycles, and systems that rely on repetition or passivity are shifted by decisive speech. The spoken word initiates momentum where none existed. Once momentum begins, it sustains itself as opportunities, resources, and alignment follow the direction established by authority. Silence allows the default to persist. Speech disrupts and redirects. Speaking once also accelerates alignment with destiny. Many individuals wait for confirmation, opportunity, or external validation before speaking. This delay slows manifestations because the spiritual realm waits for verbal authorization. Authority delivered decisively provides that authorization, opening channels that remain dormant without instruction. Timing, resources, and favor begin to flow toward the one who speaks decisively. Faith and expectation are critical components of speaking once. Words spoken without belief or anticipation carry little influence. Expectation ensures the spoken word is recognized and acted upon in the unseen and natural realms. Faith secures permanence. Together, faith and expectation empower a single declaration to accomplish what repeated uncertain statements cannot. Speaking once enforces boundaries in both spiritual and natural realms. Boundaries are necessary to maintain order, protect resources, and direct influence. Authority-filled words define what is allowed, what is accepted, and what must change. Silence relinquishes boundaries. Hesitation compromises authority. Speaking once establishes terms immediately, creating structure that others and circumstances are compelled to respect. The spiritual principle behind speaking once is rooted in alignment, authority, and clarity. Repeated statements attempt to compensate for uncertainty, whereas one confident declaration assumes control. The unseen realm responds to decisiveness because it recognizes instruction, not inquiry. The spoken word becomes a command that aligns people, circumstances, and timing with your intended outcome. Speaking once minimizes distraction and maximizes focus. Energy is concentrated on what matters rather than diffused across repeated attempts. Focused energy strengthens momentum, reinforces authority, and ensures that the outcome moves in direct accordance with your declaration. Scattered repetition, even if well-intentioned, weakens influence because spiritual systems respond to precision and expectation. The power of speaking once also demonstrates confidence and self-mastery. It communicates that your words carry weight, your authority is recognized, and your expectations are fixed. Silence or repeated speech communicates uncertainty, giving opposition a foothold. Authority expressed through a single declaration asserts leadership, defines outcome, and accelerates alignment. Speaking once creates a legacy of decisive action. Patterns established by authoritative speech influence subsequent declarations, behaviors, and expectations. One powerful statement sets a precedent for consistency, expectation, and alignment, producing long-term influence far beyond the immediate context. The year 2026 responds to purpose, not passivity. Destiny is not random. It unfolds according to the alignments, declarations, and authorizations that are established in the spiritual and natural realms. What is commanded with clarity, faith, and expectation produces results that appear inevitable because the systems of heaven recognize authority, consistency, and intention. When you decree your purpose with certainty, you are not merely hoping for outcomes. You are positioning yourself to receive, manage, and multiply what has been ordained for your life. Purpose is more than a goal. It is a declaration of identity. When you define your purpose verbally, your words carry instruction that realigns every circumstance around your life. Many people move through the year without speaking their intentions, and as a result, the default conditions of life fill in the gaps. Speaking your purpose ensures that the unseen realm and the natural realm understand where to focus resources, opportunities, and divine favor. Silence leaves destiny unclaimed. Clarity of purpose amplifies influence. When your words define who you are becoming and what you will accomplish, environments, relationships, and even spiritual forces shift to accommodate that declaration. Without clarity, your voice becomes diluted and momentum slows. The universe responds not to casual thought, but to declared intention. Clarity produces focus, and focus drives consistent action toward intended outcomes. Purpose aligns the heart, mind, and spirit. Alignment is essential because misalignment creates fragmentation, internal conflict, hesitation, and distraction. When all aspects of your being resonate with the purpose you have declared, your energy flows in one direction. Unity strengthens authority, multiplies momentum, and accelerates manifestation. Fragmentation delays results because energy is divided, intention is scattered, and faith is weakened. Purpose also activates expectation. When you declare your intention with precision, your spirit begins to anticipate fulfillment rather than delay. Expectation creates a magnetic force that draws resources, people, and opportunities towards you. Without expectation, declarations remain words. With expectation, they become commands that set systems into motion. The more consistently you speak with expectation, the faster circumstances align with your voice. Declaring purpose positions you as an initiator rather than a reactor. Many wait for circumstances to improve or for opportunities to present themselves. Those who wait without speaking allow time and chance to dictate outcomes. Speaking with authority establishes control. It instructs circumstances to move in accordance with your voice, giving you the initiative in shaping your destiny. Purpose requires intentionality. Words spoken without intention scatter influence. Words spoken with deliberate focus carry authority. Intention channels energy, ensuring that your voice produces measurable shifts rather than temporary ripples. Spiritual systems respond to intentional instruction more quickly than to casual speech. Each declaration is a signal that sets into motion unseen mechanisms that support your growth, provision, and breakthrough. The power of speaking purposefully is also relational. When others hear your clear and confident declarations, they recognize leadership and are more likely to align with your vision. Influence expands because clarity inspires cooperation, trust, and momentum. When your purpose is undefined, your influence is minimal and opportunities are missed. Intentional speech commands attention and creates alignment in relationships, collaborations, and networks. Purpose strengthens resilience. Challenges and opposition are inevitable, but when your voice has declared destiny with authority, obstacles lose their power to redirect or delay progress. Challenges become confirmations that momentum is active rather than deterrence. Authority established through purpose ensures that resistance cannot overturn what has been verbally aligned. Every spoken declaration fortifies your position. Even when circumstances appear contrary, speaking purposefully also multiplies spiritual impact. Repeated, consistent declarations compound the power of your words, layering momentum and expectation over time. Each declaration reinforces the previous one, creating a cumulative force that the spiritual realm cannot ignore. The unseen realm responds to patterns, consistency, and clarity, which is why the repeated alignment of words with purpose magnifies outcomes. Purpose also trains perception. When you have clearly defined and spoken your intentions, you begin to notice opportunities, confirmations, and alignments that might otherwise go unseen. Your awareness is heightened because your spirit is tuned to recognize evidence of progress. Inconsistent speech or vague purpose dulls perception, leaving potential unrecognized. Intentional declaration sharpens awareness, enabling timely action. Purpose directs energy. Energy flows where focus is established. When words define your goals, your attention and actions follow the spoken instructions. Without verbal declaration, energy can be wasted on distraction, hesitation, or fear. Purpose ensures that energy is concentrated, momentum is maintained, and results are accelerated. Energy without direction is ineffective. Energy with verbalized purpose becomes unstoppable. Speaking purposefully also enhances timing. Many breakthroughs remain delayed until the environment is verbally prepared to receive them. Words issued with clarity act as signals that open doors, align resources, and activate divine favor. Without spoken authorization, opportunities may pass unnoticed or unclaimed. Timing is optimized when declarations establish readiness, expectation, and authority. Purpose protects against distraction and doubt. When your identity and direction are clearly declared, you are less vulnerable to competing narratives, fear, or discouragement. Distractions lose influence because your voice has already established parameters. Doubt weakens when confronted by repeated authoritative declaration. Speaking your purpose fortifies your heart, mind, and spirit against interference. The act of declaring purpose also governs influence over outcomes. Those who speak with authority and clarity create environments that cooperate with their voice. When circumstances seem resistant, clear declaration recalibrates systems. Opportunity, resources, and favor move in accordance with verbalized intention. Authority is recognized because it is repeated with conviction and supported by aligned action. Purpose empowers faith. Faith thrives when supported by clarity and expectation. Words that define destiny give faith a framework to operate within, ensuring that belief is consistent, confident, and unshakable. When faith is coupled with clear verbalization of purpose, it becomes proactive, commanding movement rather than passively hoping for results. Speaking with purpose sets a precedent for your future. Repeated declarations establish a pattern of authority, expectation, and alignment that compounds over time. Your words create a foundation for growth, provision, and breakthrough. Future opportunities are more readily aligned to your voice because precedent has already been established. Purpose also multiplies influence over natural and spiritual systems. Environments, relationships, timing, and opportunities respond to spoken intention because they recognize instruction. Authority released through declaration communicates that you are ready, responsible, and positioned to receive. Silence or indecision, by contrast, allows default conditions to persist. Speaking purposefully transforms vision into action. A vision without declaration remains abstract, distant, and theoretical. Words bring vision into a framework for manifestation, preparing your mind, spirit, and environment to cooperate with what has been spoken. Declaration bridges the gap between thought and reality, creating alignment that enables progress to unfold efficiently. Purpose dictates how resources are allocated. When you speak your direction clearly, divine, natural, and human resources align to support your objectives. Silence or vague articulation leaves provision scattered or delayed. Authority ensures that resources respond accurately to the needs defined by your voice. Every declaration of purpose enhances momentum. Momentum is built over time through repeated, intentional, and expectant speech. It strengthens alignment, reinforces expectation, and accelerates outcomes. Inconsistent speech or unspoken intentions interrupt momentum, slowing progress. The more consistently and confidently purpose is declared, the faster destiny moves into alignment with your voice. Purpose empowers leadership. Words define boundaries, establish priorities, and direct influence. Leadership emerges naturally when authority is communicated clearly. When others see decisive speech paired with faith, expectation, and alignment, they are drawn into cooperation. Influence expands because authority has been articulated and reinforced. Speaking with purpose in 2026 ensures that the year responds to your authority rather than chance. It positions you as an active participant in your destiny, not a passive observer. Words spoken with clarity, expectation, and conviction activate momentum, align systems, and attract opportunity. Purpose transforms potential into measurable progress, ensuring that what has been spoken carries power to shape reality. Beloved of the Lord, now hear me clearly. What you have declared, what you have decreed, and what you have spoken in faith is not idle. It is already moving on your behalf. The heavens are listening, the spiritual realm is aligning, and your breakthrough is unavoidable. I want you to understand something crucial. Your words are not suggestions. They are instructions. Your authority has been activated. Your purpose has been established. Your destiny is responding. Do not allow doubt to whisper. Do not allow fear to speak louder than your decree. And do not step back from what you have already authorized. Stand firm, speak boldly, act intentionally. Every word you have spoken is planting seeds that will yield harvest, multiplied beyond what you can imagine. The assignments, opportunities, and miracles that belong to you are on their way because you dared to decree and you dared to believe. So I want you to declare it once more with confidence, knowing that heaven is backing your voice. This is your moment to step into authority, to step into expectation, and to step into the fulfillment of all that has been promised for your life. You are aligned, you are empowered, and you are unstoppable. Say it, believe it, and watch as your miracle unfolds. The year 2026 is yours, and nothing can stop what God has ordained for you. Authority is not a status you are given. It is a position you recognize and release. It is not dependent on approval, circumstances, or recognition from others. It is activated by clarity of thought, decisiveness of speech, and consistency of declaration. Authority flows naturally when a person knows who they are, understands what they are called to do, and refuses to negotiate with delay, fear, or opposition. Confusion, hesitation, and uncertainty diminish authority, but clarity restores it and allows it to operate effectively. Clarity is the foundation of authority. Without clarity, decisions are weak, speech is fragmented, and influence is diluted. When your thoughts are aligned with your purpose and your words reflect that alignment, your authority becomes visible and recognized. Authority does not rely on volume or force. It relies on the quiet power of certainty. The clearer you are about your intentions, the stronger your command over circumstances becomes. Hesitation signals uncertainty, and uncertainty undermines influence. Authority requires decisiveness. Indecision is a form of weakness because it allows conditions to dictate your outcomes. Speaking with authority means making choices and taking a firm stand. It means knowing what you will accept and what you will not tolerate. Decisive words carry instruction. They do not negotiate with doubt. They enforce alignment. The unseen realm responds to certainty, and decisive declarations are the language through which authority communicates. Many people possess potential authority, but never experience its power because they speak from emotion rather than clarity. Emotions are fleeting. Authority requires consistency and conviction. When your words are rooted in certainty, they create a framework for action and response. Authority spoken from clarity signals to the universe and to others that your position is fixed, your boundaries are defined, and your expectations are non-negotiable. Authority shapes identity. The way you speak determines the way you are perceived and the way you perceive yourself. When you declare with confidence, you establish the boundaries of your identity and influence. Authority aligns your inner conviction with your external expression, ensuring that your actions, decisions, and relationships operate within the framework you have defined. Without clarity, identity becomes negotiable and influence weakens. Authority also organizes priorities. When you are clear about your purpose and speak with certainty, your focus naturally aligns with what matters most. Authority eliminates distractions because it enforces boundaries and clarifies direction. Without clarity, priorities are scattered, attention is divided, and progress is slow. Words spoken with authority act as a compass, guiding energy, focus, and effort toward what has been decreed. Authority is recognized through consistency. One declarative statement establishes position. Repeated declarations reinforce influence. Consistency signals seriousness, intention, and stability. The unseen realm and natural systems respond to repetition backed by conviction. When your words are consistent, circumstances begin to realign, and resistance diminishes because your position has been repeatedly confirmed. Inconsistency, however, invites opposition and confusion. Clarity amplifies authority because it removes ambiguity. Ambiguous speech leaves room for misinterpretation, doubt, and delay. Clear words define outcomes, instruct systems, and create expectation. Authority is ineffective when your language contradicts your intention. Alignment between belief, speech, and action is critical because it ensures that your authority is recognized and honored. Authority transforms opposition. Challenges, resistance, and unexpected events do not eliminate power, they reveal it. Words spoken from clarity dictate how opposition is handled. When authority is present, obstacles are repositioned rather than destructive. Resistance becomes a signal that your influence is operating, and clarity determines the outcome rather than leaving it to chance. Authority strengthens relationships and influence over others. People respond to clarity, decisiveness, and confidence. When your language reflects authority, others naturally align with your vision, intentions, and expectations. Leadership is recognized not by persuasion alone, but by the consistency and clarity of your declarations. Hesitation erodes influence, but certainty expands it. Authority also protects energy. Words spoken from doubt scatter influence and invite confusion. Authority spoken from clarity focuses spiritual, mental, and emotional energy toward the intended outcome. This focus accelerates momentum and ensures that resources, opportunities, and actions align with your purpose. Scattered or inconsistent speech, however, weakens authority and delays results. Authority is exercised through strategic speech. Not every thought or feeling requires expression, but words chosen with intention carry instruction, expectation, and command. Speaking with authority means understanding the weight of your voice and using it to align circumstances with your intention. Silence or poorly considered words can cede control, while well-timed, precise, and intentional speech enforces outcomes. Clarity establishes the framework for timing. Speaking too early may lack support, while speaking too late may miss opportunity. Authority knows the right moment to declare. Timing enhances the effectiveness of words, ensures proper alignment, and maximizes influence. Authority spoken with precision reaches its full potential because it is issued when conditions are ready to respond. Authority aligns faith and expectation. Words spoken with certainty train the mind, stabilize the spirit, and generate confidence. This alignment reinforces internal belief, creating consistency between what is declared and what is anticipated. When belief and declaration agree, momentum is released and outcomes are accelerated. Misalignment, however, produces hesitation, doubt, and delayed manifestation. Authority shapes perception. Words spoken with clarity influence how you interpret circumstances, see opportunities, and respond to challenges. Authority dictates that your perspective aligns with expectation rather than reaction. When your mind and heart are guided by confident declaration, obstacles become temporary, resources become visible, and progress becomes inevitable. Authority multiplies through repetition and reinforcement. A single declaration establishes a position, but consistent, clear, and deliberate statements reinforce influence, activate spiritual systems, and produce measurable results. Authority is not a one-time occurrence. It is maintained and strengthened through deliberate verbal and mental alignment. Authority empowers action. Clear speech directs behavior, decision-making, and priorities. Those who operate with clarity of word and purpose find that their actions naturally align with intended outcomes. Authority without action is ineffective, but when speech and action agree, momentum accelerates. Obstacles are redirected, and opportunities are fully realized. Authority removes compromise. When you speak from clarity, you establish non-negotiable parameters. Boundaries are defined, expectations are set, and cycles of delay or opposition are interrupted. Authority ensures that what you have spoken is recognized, aligned, and enforced, both in the spiritual and natural realms. Authority produces confidence. When words are spoken with clarity, conviction, and consistency, fear, doubt, and uncertainty lose their hold. Internal assurance strengthens decision-making, action, and influence. Confidence derived from authority communicates leadership even before circumstances shift in response. Authority also communicates destiny. Clear, decisive speech declares who you are, what you are becoming, and what you will achieve. Destiny is not shaped by chance, but by the consistent exercise of authority through word, action, and expectation. Words become instruction, and instruction establishes outcomes, aligning the future with your voice. Authority is the intersection of clarity, decisiveness, consistency, and alignment. It is recognized in the natural and spiritual realms because it enforces order, establishes expectation, and commands response. Without clarity, authority is weakened. With clarity, authority becomes an unstoppable force that shapes circumstances, opportunities, and outcomes according to the intention of the one who speaks. Intentional language is one of the most powerful tools a person can wield. It is the difference between hope and results, between wishful thinking and tangible outcomes. Words are not merely a reflection of thought. They are instructions to the universe, commands that direct both the natural and spiritual realms. When your language is intentional, it becomes a force that initiates change, activates resources, and aligns circumstances with your declared purpose. Without intention, words scatter like seeds on barren ground. With intention, they take root and produce harvest. Intentional language requires clarity of thought. When you are clear about what you want, what you believe, and what you are willing to receive, your words carry weight. Ambiguity weakens authority because it signals uncertainty. The universe responds to certainty and instruction, not indecision. The more precisely you define your declarations, the more directly the unseen and natural realms can align to bring them into manifestation. Language that is intentional is always focused, precise, and purposeful. Intentional language also carries expectation. It assumes that what you are speaking is not only possible but inevitable. Expectation is a magnet for resources, opportunities, and alignment. When you declare something with expectation, you are instructing your spirit, mind, and external circumstances to anticipate fulfillment. Words without expectation are powerless. They float without traction and often fail to produce results. Intention coupled with expectation creates a force that the natural and spiritual realms cannot ignore. Intentional language establishes authority. Authority is recognized when speech is deliberate, clear, and unwavering. Hesitant or reactive language dilutes power and invites resistance. Words spoken with intention, however, are commands. They instruct circumstances rather than ask for permission. Authority does not demand force. It simply states alignment, expectation, and purpose. When your words are intentional, systems respond because they recognize direction and decisiveness. Intentional language is disciplined. Not everything you feel needs to be said, and not every observation requires a response. Disciplined language preserves influence, protects energy, and focuses momentum on what matters. Repetitive or scattered words weaken your authority because they create noise without instruction. Intentional speech is measured, deliberate, and impactful. It conveys power without aggression and influence without force. Intentional language defines boundaries. Boundaries are essential for maintaining order, protecting resources, and controlling influence. When your words are intentional, they communicate what is acceptable and what is not. They establish the framework within which interactions, opportunities, and relationships must operate. Silence or vague language allows boundaries to be crossed or ignored, but intentional words enforce them naturally. Intentional language also structures timing. Speaking at the wrong moment can diminish influence, while speaking at the right moment amplifies it. Intention recognizes the rhythm of life and aligns your speech with the right opportunity for action. Words issued intentionally at the proper time trigger alignment, resources, and divine favor. Timing without intention produces random results. Intention without timing produces scattered results. Together, they produce power. Intentional language builds internal alignment. When your words match your beliefs, convictions, and actions, your authority is strengthened. Misalignment between what you say, what you think, and what you do creates hesitation, confusion, and weakened influence. Speaking with intention ensures that your inner world and your external expression are synchronized, producing momentum that is steady and unstoppable. Intentional language transforms challenges. Life will present obstacles, opposition, and unexpected events, but words spoken with clarity, purpose, and authority redirect energy instead of allowing it to control you. Intentional speech shifts circumstances rather than reacting to them. Opposition becomes a signal that momentum is active, a confirmation that your words are operating rather than a threat to your progress. Intentional language enhances focus. Words spoken deliberately direct attention, energy, and resources toward your intended outcome. Distractions, doubts, and competing priorities lose power when your declarations are consistent and purposeful. Momentum builds because energy is concentrated on defined objectives. Without intentional speech, energy scatters. Opportunities are missed and results are delayed. Intentional language multiplies impact. One carefully chosen, faith-filled statement can produce greater effect than hours of scattered talk or uncertain declarations. Repetition enhances momentum when each repetition is purposeful, reinforcing expectation, authority, and alignment. Words spoken without intentionality may be heard, but they rarely produce tangible change. Language that is deliberate, consistent, and expectant activates systems and produces outcomes. Intentional language shapes perception. When you declare with clarity and authority, your mind begins to focus on solutions, opportunities, and alignment rather than obstacles or limitations. Your spirit is trained to anticipate fulfillment instead of delay. Intentional words train you to see possibilities, notice resources, and recognize timing that supports your declarations. They condition both your inner world and your external circumstances to respond to your voice. Intentional language strengthens faith. Words delivered with conviction reinforce belief and expectation. Faith without words is potential waiting to be realized, but words give faith a vehicle for action. Speaking intentionally allows belief to express itself and momentum to build. Faith is energized by language, and language is empowered by purpose. Intentional language also attracts support. People, systems, and opportunities respond to clarity, decisiveness, and expectation. When your words are deliberate, those around you recognize leadership, authority, and competence. Support emerges naturally because others see that you are intentional, prepared, and aligned with purpose. Hesitant or unclear speech, by contrast, generates confusion and delays collaboration. Intentional language preserves energy. Repeated, unfocused speech drains spiritual, emotional, and mental reserves. Words scattered without purpose weaken influence and delay results. One intentional, precise declaration carries far more power than prolonged, uncertain talk. Focused energy directs momentum, ensuring that outcomes align with what has been decreed. Intentional language enforces destiny. It communicates identity, clarifies purpose, and activates potential. Silence or reactive speech allows circumstances, fear, or opposition to shape outcomes. Words spoken with intention position you as an active participant in your life rather than a passive observer. They instruct the universe, realign conditions, and activate resources. Intentional language also multiplies over time. Each deliberate statement compounds previous declarations, building layers of expectation, authority, and alignment. Momentum increases because repeated, focused words reinforce direction and expectation. This layered influence ensures that breakthroughs, opportunities, and provision flow consistently in response to what has been intentionally spoken. Intentional language is transformative. It turns thought into reality, vision into action, and potential into results. It is not casual, reactive, or passive. It is deliberate, strategic, and authoritative. When you speak with intention, every word carries instruction, expectation, and momentum. Circumstances shift, resistance diminishes, and alignment occurs naturally because systems respond to clarity, authority, and focus. Intentional language governs outcomes. It clarifies identity, reinforces boundaries, strengthens faith, and attracts resources. It positions the speaker as a leader, ensures that energy is concentrated, and creates momentum that cannot easily be stopped. When words are deliberate, repeated with expectation, and aligned with purpose, they shape the future in both the spiritual and natural realms. Intentional language is the difference between waiting and receiving, between observing and commanding, between potential and fulfillment. It activates authority, directs momentum, and ensures that what you have spoken aligns with what is manifested. Words spoken intentionally instruct, align, and release systems, producing outcomes that reflect clarity, expectation, and power. Consistency is the engine that transforms spoken words, decrees, and intentions into tangible results. Without consistency, even the most powerful declarations can falter, lose momentum, or be delayed. The unseen realm and natural circumstances respond not only to what is spoken, but also to the frequency, reliability, and regularity with which it is reinforced. Consistency signals seriousness, authority, and readiness to receive. When you consistently align your words, beliefs, and actions, momentum builds quietly but powerfully, preparing every system, spiritual, mental, and natural, to respond. Consistency builds credibility. Both the spiritual realm and the people around you respond to patterns. One declaration may spark influence. Repeated, consistent declarations establish reliability. Systems recognize patterns. Repetition with conviction communicates certainty, reinforces expectation, and strengthens authority. Inconsistency, on the other hand, sends mixed signals, allowing doubt, delay, or opposition to gain ground. What is repeated consistently carries weight because it establishes a framework that supports alignment and response. Consistency strengthens internal belief. Every time you repeat a declaration, your mind and spirit are trained to expect fulfillment. The brain responds to repetition. Faith responds to consistency. When your declarations are steady and unwavering, your heart and mind internalize confidence. Expectation becomes instinctive and hesitation diminishes. This internal alignment between belief and declaration ensures that your faith remains steadfast. Even when circumstances seem contrary, consistency produces momentum. Momentum is built incrementally through repeated, deliberate action and reinforced declarations. Each consistent statement compounds the effect of the previous one, creating a cumulative force that becomes unstoppable over time. Delay or opposition may attempt to interrupt progress, but consistent speech and aligned actions maintain direction. Momentum acts as an invisible current, pulling opportunities, resources, and outcomes toward alignment with your intentions. Consistency also shapes authority. Authority is not static. It must be reinforced through repetition, clarity, and alignment. One strong declaration establishes a position, but repeated declarations reinforce it. Authority is recognized when words and actions are dependable, deliberate, and unwavering. Inconsistent speech weakens influence because it signals indecision, uncertainty, or lack of alignment. Consistency solidifies authority, ensuring that your words are treated as commands rather than suggestions. Consistency aligns action with purpose. Words alone are insufficient if they are not reinforced by repeated, focused effort. Action that reflects consistent intention amplifies the impact of declarations, creating pathways for manifestation. Each consistent action signals readiness and prepares the environment to respond. Sporadic or inconsistent effort, however, undermines authority and slows results because systems cannot fully align with unpredictable signals. Consistency trains endurance. Waiting for results can be challenging. Steady, repeated declaration sustains faith and expectation. The process of consistently speaking and acting in alignment with purpose strengthens perseverance. Obstacles, resistance, or delays are less discouraging because the foundation has been reinforced through repetition. Consistency develops patience without surrendering expectation, creating a resilient spirit that does not falter under pressure. Consistency also enhances clarity. Repetition sharpens focus and eliminates confusion. When words, intentions, and actions are consistently aligned, priorities become obvious, decisions become easier, and energy is directed toward meaningful outcomes. Inconsistent patterns scatter focus and reduce effectiveness, whereas consistency concentrates power, reinforcing momentum and authority. Consistency magnifies spiritual impact. The unseen realm responds to patterns, not isolated events. Every repeated declaration builds layers of authority, expectation, and alignment. Over time, this creates a gravitational pull that draws circumstances, resources, and divine intervention into alignment with your spoken words. Sporadic or weak declarations fail to activate systems fully, but consistent, deliberate speech establishes a foundation for supernatural response. Consistency protects focus. Life constantly presents distractions, challenges, and conflicting messages. Without repeated reinforcement of intention and alignment, attention is easily diverted. Consistency acts as an anchor, keeping the mind, spirit, and actions focused on what has been spoken and expected. This focus preserves momentum, ensures strategic use of energy, and reinforces the framework for results. Consistency also strengthens relationships and influence. People naturally respond to reliability. Leaders, collaborators, and supporters are more likely to align with those whose words and actions are consistent over time. Unpredictability undermines trust, whereas repeated alignment builds confidence, reinforces credibility, and attracts cooperation. The impact of consistency extends beyond the individual, influencing environments, systems, and networks. Consistency trains expectation. The more often you declare and act in alignment with purpose, the more your heart and mind are conditioned to anticipate fulfillment. This expectation is not passive hope. It is active anticipation that directs focus, decision-making, and perception toward outcomes. A mind trained in expectation recognizes opportunities and resources more readily, accelerating manifestation. Consistency safeguards energy. Repetition, when intentional, concentrates spiritual, mental, and emotional energy in a single direction. Each declaration and action reinforces momentum, reducing wasted effort. In contrast, inconsistent behavior dissipates energy, prolongs delay, and invites distraction. Focused, repeated action maximizes impact and ensures that every effort contributes to progress. Consistency establishes timing. Certain spiritual and natural breakthroughs require readiness, alignment, and repetition to occur. Delays often indicate a need for repeated activation of authority and expectation. Regular, deliberate declaration prepares circumstances to receive and align with your intention. Timing responds to readiness, and readiness is cultivated through consistency. Consistency multiplies results. Each repeated, aligned action builds upon the previous one, amplifying momentum and influence. The cumulative effect of sustained declaration and action is greater than the sum of individual efforts. Over time, consistent practice activates systems and produces outcomes that seem impossible when viewed from a single isolated statement or action. Consistency also stabilizes faith. Obstacles, opposition, and challenges may arise, but repeated declarations and aligned actions reinforce belief and expectation. Stability in faith ensures that doubt does not undermine authority or momentum. Each consistent act builds confidence in the unseen process, creating a secure foundation for continued advancement. Consistency enhances perception. Repetition conditions the mind and spirit to recognize opportunities, confirmations, and resources that align with your declarations. Those who are inconsistent often miss signs, timing, or openings because their attention is scattered. The consistent mind is trained to see, discern, and act with clarity, ensuring that every step taken is aligned with purpose. Consistency is transformative. It converts words into authority, intention into action, and expectation into momentum. By committing to deliberate, repeated alignment between speech, belief, and action, outcomes begin to manifest naturally. The energy generated through consistency activates spiritual and natural systems, positioning the individual to receive and capitalize on opportunities as they arise. Consistency governs destiny. Without it, influence is weakened, momentum falters, and authority is diluted. When speech, action, and belief are maintained with regularity, clarity, and purpose, the trajectory of life shifts to align with your declarations. Repetition compounds influence, strengthens authority, and amplifies the force of intention, ensuring that what has been spoken manifests in both natural and spiritual realms. Consistency transforms waiting into preparation, obstacles into confirmation, and effort into momentum. Repeated alignment of words, actions, and beliefs builds momentum that cannot be ignored, creating a force that positions the individual to receive the results, opportunities, and breakthroughs they have declared and expected. Expectation is the invisible force that accelerates manifestation. It is not mere hope or wishful thinking. It is the confident anticipation that what has been spoken, decreed, or believed is already moving toward fulfillment. Expectation is a form of spiritual magnetism, drawing resources, opportunities, and circumstances into alignment with your declarations. When expectation is present, your words are no longer passive statements. They become instructions to the universe, commands that the natural and spiritual realms respond to. Without expectation, declarations may be spoken, but their impact is diminished because the unseen realm requires anticipation to activate momentum. Expectation begins in the mind and heart. It requires clear understanding of what is being called forth and a willingness to believe that it will come to pass. Vagueness weakens anticipation because the spiritual realm cannot respond to ambiguity. When expectation is precise, it creates focus and aligns energy. Your mind begins to scan for opportunities and confirmations. Your spirit positions itself to recognize solutions, and circumstances begin to shift to match the anticipated outcome. Expectation tunes perception to detect alignment and opportunity. Expectation multiplies the power of faith. Faith believes, but expectation commands. Faith opens the door. Expectation steps through it with authority. Words spoken without expectation may initiate action. They lack the momentum necessary to accelerate results. When declarations are coupled with confident anticipation, they gain weight and influence. The unseen realm responds to the certainty that expectation conveys, moving in ways that honor the directive embedded in your declaration. Expectation creates focus and consistency. A person who consistently expects fulfillment aligns thoughts, speech, and actions toward the anticipated outcome. Distractions, doubts, and fears lose their influence because attention is directed toward what is coming, not what is currently visible. Consistency of expectation builds momentum over time, reinforcing the authority of the declarations and ensuring that the intended result is actively pursued and received. Expectation shapes perception. When your heart and mind are trained to anticipate results, you begin to notice possibilities, opportunities, and resources that others overlook. Doors open, connections align, and timing becomes favorable because your awareness is attuned to recognize what supports your declarations. Without expectation, many blessings pass unnoticed, opportunities are missed, and the fulfillment of spoken words is delayed. Expectation acts as a lens, bringing what belongs to you into sharper focus and enabling proactive engagement. Expectation generates emotional stability. Process of manifestation often involves waiting, challenges, and delays. Without anticipation, doubt and discouragement can take hold, weakening faith and slowing progress. A heart anchored in expectation remains confident, poised, and persistent. Anticipation trains the mind to respond to evidence rather than fear, reinforcing alignment between belief and action and creating the inner resilience necessary to navigate obstacles. Expectation communicates authority. Words spoken with confident anticipation carry command. They instruct circumstances rather than negotiate with them. Hesitation weakens authority, but expectation establishes certainty, signaling to both the spiritual and natural realms that your position is fixed and your outcome is non-negotiable. Opposition may arise, but expectation ensures that resistance cannot permanently delay fulfillment. Because the energy behind your declarations compels alignment, expectation aligns timing. Many breakthroughs are dependent not on chance, but on readiness. Spiritual and natural systems respond when expectation signals preparedness. Repeated declarations accompanied by anticipation activate opportunities, align resources, and open doors. Timing and readiness synchronize when expectation is present, reducing delay and accelerating the fulfillment of spoken words. Expectation ensures that circumstances respond at the right moment to maximize impact. Expectation influences relationships and interactions. People, opportunities, and environments respond to those who operate with confident anticipation. Leaders who expect results inspire confidence, attract cooperation, and gain alignment from others. When your words and demeanor reflect anticipation, collaborators, allies, and even opponents recognize your authority and respond accordingly. Expectation creates momentum not only in personal manifestation, but also in relational and professional spheres. Expectation reinforces consistency. Repeatedly expecting results solidifies belief and positions the individual to act decisively. Momentum accumulates as declarations, actions, and anticipation reinforce each other. Each expression of expectation strengthens authority, aligns focus, and activates systems. Inconsistency, by contrast, creates hesitation, confusion, and delays. Consistent anticipation magnifies the power of spoken words and amplifies the impact of faith-driven actions. Expectation trains the spirit to receive. Anticipation prepares the heart, mind, and environment to accept fulfillment. Without expectation, even declared intentions may remain dormant because the systems necessary to bring them to pass are not activated. Expectation is a signal that readiness exists, and it positions the individual to recognize, seize, and steward what has been promised. Receiving requires anticipation, and anticipation requires expectation. Expectation cultivates persistence. Manifestation often requires repeated alignment of speech, thought, and action. Expectation ensures that energy is sustained even when immediate results are not visible. It fuels perseverance, maintaining focus and determination until the desired outcome is fully realized. The longer expectation is maintained, the more momentum is generated and the more resistance is overcome. Expectation amplifies results over time. Each declaration, coupled with confident anticipation, builds upon the previous one. Like compounding interest, repeated expectation magnifies influence, accelerates alignment, and strengthens momentum. This compounding effect ensures that breakthroughs, opportunities, and blessings do not merely appear. They multiply, intensify, and sustain themselves in response to the energy of expectation. Expectation protects against doubt and distraction. When the mind and heart are anchored in confident anticipation, opposing forces such as fear, uncertainty, or criticism lose power. Expectation provides a filter that prioritizes alignment, recognizes opportunity, and directs focus toward what is intended rather than what is currently visible. Safeguards energy, maintains clarity, and ensures that momentum is not dissipated. Expectation coordinates action. When anticipation is present, behavior aligns with intention. Decisions are made with clarity, strategies are executed with precision, and efforts are concentrated toward outcomes. Expectation provides a framework for action, ensuring that what is done matches what has been declared. Words, thought, and movement synchronize when expectation is active, producing coherent momentum that accelerates results. Expectation magnifies the impact of declaration. Words alone are limited without the force of anticipation. The unseen realm responds to certainty, focus, and readiness. By coupling declarations with confident expectation, the energy behind speech is amplified, creating gravitational pull that draws circumstances, resources, and alignment toward the intended outcome. Words gain authority when expectation is present and influence is multiplied. Expectation shapes destiny. It positions the individual as a proactive participant rather than a passive observer. Life responds to those who anticipate outcomes because readiness signals alignment with purpose. Opportunities, divine guidance, and resources converge when expectation dominates thought, speech, and action. The trajectory of life shifts in response to confident anticipation, accelerating fulfillment and minimizing delay. Expectation ensures alignment between faith, action, and outcome. Faith provides belief, but expectation provides forward momentum. Actions taken without expectation may be inconsistent or unfocused, whereas expectation ensures that every step contributes to the intended result. It harmonizes inner conviction with outward movement, creating a unified force that cannot be easily deterred. Expectation cultivates spiritual sensitivity. Anticipation heightens awareness to confirmations, signs, and alignments that indicate progress. Those who operate without expectation often miss these signals, leaving opportunities unrealized. Expectation tunes the spirit, mind, and senses to detect and act on alignment, ensuring that manifestations are recognized, stewarded, and expanded as they unfold. Expectation is transformative. It converts belief into action, words into authority, and intention into momentum. It magnetizes resources, coordinates timing, and aligns opportunities. With expectation, declarations are no longer passive. They become active, compelling, and unstoppable forces that shape circumstances, activate systems, and bring about fulfillment according to purpose. Silence is often misunderstood as peace or rest, but in many situations it can be a place where opportunity is lost, authority is compromised, and momentum is delayed. Silence is neutral until it is measured against the power of your words, and when words are withheld in moments that require declaration, life, circumstances, and even the spiritual realm can continue to operate under default conditions. Speaking is not merely a form of expression. It is an act of authority. Every word spoken with clarity and purpose carries instruction, expectation, and momentum. When silence dominates, authority is forfeited, and what could have been commanded remains unclaimed. Speaking with authority interrupts stagnation and initiates movement. Authority is not aggression or volume. It is clarity, precision, and decisive expression of intention. Words carry weight when spoken from a position of certainty, and the unseen realm responds to clarity more readily than to hesitation. When you speak with purpose, you define the environment, influence outcomes, and set the stage for progress. Silence, by contrast, allows circumstances to dictate results rather than your declarations. Many underestimate the power of a single authoritative statement. Repeating words out of uncertainty or fear dilutes influence, while one declaration spoken with faith, clarity, and expectation has the ability to shift entire systems. A single word of authority carries instruction that the universe must respond to, opening doors, aligning resources and positioning opportunities. Hesitation weakens the voice. Decisive speech establishes command. Speaking once requires courage. Fear and doubt often lead to repeated declarations or hesitation. One confident statement, spoken with intention and authority, produces results that repetition cannot achieve without conviction. Faith undergirds single declarations, giving them permanence and weight. A decisive word, unshaken by circumstances, aligns spiritual systems and natural resources alike. Repetition without expectation often attempts to compensate for uncertainty, but a single authoritative word bypasses doubt and establishes momentum immediately. Speaking once establishes boundaries. Boundaries are essential for maintaining order, protecting resources, and asserting authority. Silence or indecision leaves boundaries undefined, creating opportunities for interference, opposition, or confusion. Words spoken with authority define limits, communicate expectations, and ensure that what has been spoken carries enforcement. One declarative statement can interrupt cycles of limitation and establish the framework for influence. Speaking once preserves energy. Repetition without certainty scatters focus, drains emotional and spiritual reserves, and delays outcomes. Energy invested in intentional authoritative speech is concentrated, directed, and amplified. Focused words generate momentum because they do not need to be repeated to achieve recognition. The spiritual and natural systems respond to the clarity, conviction, and expectation embedded in the initial declaration. Timing is reinforced through authoritative speech. Speaking too early may lack alignment, and speaking too late may miss opportunity. Speaking once, decisively and with expectation, communicates readiness and positions circumstances to respond in harmony with the intended outcome. Timing becomes coordinated because the word establishes the framework